My phone lit up at 3:11 in the morning with my best friend Joelle's name on the screen, and the first thing I heard when I answered was her voice already crying, before either of us said anything else. She said, "Win, listen to me. I am 38 minutes from your house. I am driving. Whatever you do, do not open your door tonight until I get there. Not for anybody. I do not care who it is. If somebody knocks, you call me first, you stay in the bedroom, you wait for me. I am coming. I am almost there. Please, please." I sat up in my bed. I had been deeply asleep 2 seconds earlier. My brain was not working. I said, "Joelle, what is happening? Why are you driving to my house at 3 in the morning? Are you okay?" She said, "I am okay. I am okay. I am coming because I love you. I am coming because there is something I need to tell you in person, and I am not going to tell you on the phone. I am also coming because somebody else might get to your door before I do, and that person is going to tell you the same thing I am going to tell you, but he is going to tell you wrong, because he is not in any condition to tell anybody anything, and I am not going to let you find out from him. Please, Win, please. Do not open the door. Wait for me. I will be there in 38 minutes. I love you. Stay on the phone with me. I want to tell you what happened in the next 38 minutes, because the 38 minutes were the longest of my life, and the longest part of my life since has been figured out inside the shape of them. Listen the whole way through. Hit subscribe. Drop your city in the comments. Stay until the end. I had been married for 9 years to a man named Soren Lindholm. Soren was a mechanical engineer who worked for a private contracting firm that did infrastructure work in the energy sector. He traveled often. He had been on what he had called a 6-week work assignment in northern Norway since the 2nd week of October. It was now the 4th week of November. He had been due home in 11 days. We had been talking on the phone every 2 or 3 days. The calls had been short because the time difference made them awkward, and because his work site had limited cell coverage, and because he had told me, before he had left, that the project he was on involved some confidential aspects he could not discuss. I had not pressed. I had not pressed because 9 years of marriage to him had taught me that he told me what he could tell me and that the rest of it was his to carry. I had been alone in our small house on a quiet street in southeastern Wisconsin for the previous 5.5 weeks. I had a job I liked, teaching middle school orchestra at the public school in town. I had a small group of friends. I had a cat named Bishop who was elderly and arthritic and slept on the foot of the bed. I had been, by every measure I could take of my own life, fine. I stayed on the phone with Joelle. She drove. I asked her, several times, what was happening. She told me, every time, that she was not going to tell me on the phone. She told me she was coming. She told me she loved me. She told me to keep talking to her. She asked me about my day. I told her about my day. I had taught 5 orchestra classes that day. I had eaten leftover chili for dinner. I had been grading rubrics for the holiday concert auditions when I had finally gone to bed at 11:30. Joelle listened to me describe my day. She asked me questions. She kept me talking. She was good at this. She was good at this because she had been my best friend since we were 11 years old, and because she had been doing graduate work in social work at the University of Wisconsin in Madison for the last 2 years, and because she had been training in that program to do exactly what she was doing on the phone right then, which was to keep a person in the doorway of bad news from walking through the doorway alone. I did not know, yet, that I was in the doorway of bad news. I was figuring it out, slowly, in the back of my mind, as I listened to her voice, and as I noticed that she was crying every few minutes and was trying to hide it. At 3:26 in the morning, 16 minutes after Joelle had called me, I heard the sound of a car pulling into my driveway. The car was not Joelle's car. Joelle drove a small blue Subaru. The car in my driveway, from the sound of it, was a larger vehicle, an SUV or a van. I told Joelle. I went to the bedroom window. I looked out through the gap in the curtain. The vehicle was a dark blue Buick sedan. It was not a vehicle I recognized. There were 2 people getting out of it. One of them was an elderly man who I recognized, even at that distance, in the porch light that had just come on with the motion sensor. The man was Erland Lindholm. Erland was Soren's father. Erland was 78 years old. He had Parkinson's disease. He lived in Milwaukee with a live-in caregiver. He should not, by any version of his own life I had been keeping track of, have been getting out of a Buick sedan in my driveway at 3:26 in the morning. The other person was a woman in nursing scrubs. The nursing scrubs were the kind people wear who are working a long shift. She was helping Erland out of the car. She was holding his elbow. She was speaking to him in a soft voice. She was looking at my house. Joelle, on the phone, said, Win, is somebody there? I said, Joelle, it is Erland, Soren's father. He is in my driveway. There is a nurse with him. Joelle, what is happening? Why is Erland at my house at 3 in the morning? There was a silence on the phone. The silence was the worst silence I had ever heard. Joelle said, Win, listen to me. I am 12 minutes out. I am driving as fast as I can. I do not want you to open the door yet. I want you to call out through the door to Erland and tell him that you can hear him and you know he is there and you love him, but that you need him to wait in his car for 12 minutes because I am almost there and you want me with you when he comes in. He will understand. He will understand because I called his nurse 2 hours ago and I told her that I would be the one to tell you, and she agreed, and she told me she was going to try to keep him from driving until I got there, and she has clearly failed because he has driven anyway, and that is okay. That is okay, but he can wait 12 more minutes in the car. Please do that. Erland knocked on the front door. 3 knocks, soft, slow, the knocks of an old man with Parkinson's. I went to the front door. I did not unlock it. I called out, through the door, in the steadiest voice I could find. I said, Erland, it is Win. I can hear you. I see you on my doorbell. Joelle is 12 minutes away. She called me first. I do not know what is happening yet, but I know it is something, and Joelle wants to be here when you come in, and I want her here too. Can you wait in your car for 12 more minutes? Just 12. Please, stay on the porch or go back to the car, whatever is more comfortable for you. The porch light will stay on. I am right here on the other side of the door. I am not going anywhere. Just 12 minutes. There was a long silence. Then I heard Erland's voice. He had a slow voice. The Parkinson's had been affecting his speech for the last 2 years. His voice was the voice of a man who was making each word on purpose. He said, Win. He is alive. He is alive, but he is in the hospital. He has been in the hospital. I am sorry. They did not call you. They did not call you, sweetheart. I just found out today. I am sorry. He is alive. He is alive. I sat down on the floor on the inside of my own front door. I could hear Joelle on the phone. She was crying. She was saying, Win, stay with me. I am 11 minutes. Stay with me. I could hear, through the door, the nurse speaking softly to Erland. She was telling him to come back to the porch chair. She was telling him she was going to bring him a blanket from the car. She was telling him Win was okay. She was telling him the woman who had called her was almost there. She was telling him he had done a good job driving. Joelle arrived 11 minutes later. I heard her car. I heard her get out. I heard her run up the front walk. I heard her stop at the porch, and I heard her say, Erland, it is me. I am here. Thank you for waiting. Thank you. Let me go into her first. Just 5 minutes. Then you both come in together. She came in. I unlocked the door for her. I let her in. I locked the door behind her. I sat on the floor of my entryway and I let her sit next to me. She told me, Soren was alive. Soren had been in a medically induced coma for 9 days at a hospital in Chicago. There had been a workplace incident at a facility his company operated outside Chicago, not in Norway, because the Norway assignment had never happened. The Norway assignment had been a story his employer had asked him to tell, because the work he had actually been doing for the previous 6 weeks had been at a domestic facility that the company had been keeping out of public knowledge for liability reasons related to an unrelated investigation. He had been at the domestic facility. There had been an industrial accident. He had been seriously injured. The company had, in the hours after the accident, made the decision to manage the information flow themselves, and that management had included not contacting his spouse, because, on the timeline they were operating on, they had been hoping he would regain consciousness within 48 hours and would be able to talk to me himself, and they had been wrong, and the 48 hours had become 9 days, and the 9 days had become a situation that an internal HR employee at the company had finally broken down about. Today, in a phone call to her own sister, who happened to be a nurse at the Chicago hospital where Soren was, who happened to be Joelle's sister-in-law, who had called Joelle in Madison at 1 in the afternoon and had told her everything, and who had then helped Joelle figure out that the right way to deliver this news was for somebody who loved me to be in the room when I heard it, and not for me to find out by way of a phone call from a stranger at the hospital, or, worse, by way of the legal team at Soren's company that had been preparing, today, to finally contact me. Joelle had called Erland's nurse next. She had told the nurse what was happening. The nurse had told Erland because Erland, by the nurse's reasonable judgment, had a right to know that his son was in a coma. Erland, the moment he had heard, had insisted on driving to Wisconsin. The nurse had not been able to stop him. The nurse had driven him. They had made better time than expected. They had arrived 16 minutes before Joelle. Joelle had been driving since 2:10 in the morning. She had not stopped. She had called me from the car when she had gotten close enough that she was reasonably sure she could beat Erland to the door. She had not, in the end, beaten him. But she had gotten close enough that the 12 minutes had been a number that had worked. I sat on the floor of my entryway with my best friend's arms around me. I did not cry. Yet. I was going to cry for a long time, starting about an hour later, when I had been in my car driving to Chicago with Joelle in the passenger seat and the nurse driving Erland behind us. I was going to cry for most of the next several weeks. I was going to cry in ways I had not previously been a person who could cry. The crying, in the entryway, had not started yet. The entryway was the moment of the news landing. The crying was going to be every minute after. I want to skip the rest, because the rest is medical, and it is private, and it is not for a video. I will tell you what you need to know. Soren came out of the coma 3 days after I got to Chicago. He is alive. He is recovering. He has had 4 surgeries. He is going to have at least 2 more. He is going to be in physical rehabilitation for a year. He is going to walk again. He is going to work again, although not in the industry he was working in, because the company he was working for is in the middle of being dismantled by a federal investigation that has nothing to do with his accident, but that has been catalyzed, in part, by the accident. And Soren has been cooperating with that investigation. And his cooperation has been the thing that has finally put names on a story that a lot of people in his industry have known about for years and have not been able to put together. I am not going to tell you the name of the company. The case is ongoing. Erland died 4 months after that night. He had been declining for 2 years before any of this, and the trip to Wisconsin and the weeks at Soren's bedside in Chicago took more out of him than his body had been holding in reserve. He died peacefully in his sleep at his home in Milwaukee with his nurse and Soren on either side of his bed. The last thing he said, the day before he died, was that he was glad he had gotten to drive his son's wife to the hospital. He had decided, in his last weeks, that the drive on that November night had been the most important thing he had done since his own wife had died 11 years earlier. I had told him, many times in those 4 months, that it was. The telling had been true. The telling had also been the smallest thing I could give him for a drive that I owed him for the rest of my life. Joelle is in her last semester of her master's in social work. She has been offered a job at the hospital where Soren was treated. She has accepted. She will be working with families in the trauma unit. She will be the person who calls family members at 3 in the morning when their person is in a coma. She will be the person who insists, when she calls them, that somebody who loves them be in the room when the news lands. She told me, 2 weeks after Soren came home from the hospital, that the night she drove from Madison to my house was the night she figured out what she was going to do with the rest of her professional life. She said the figuring out had not been complicated. She said the figuring out had been the recognition that the difference between bad news delivered well and bad news delivered badly was almost entirely a matter of who was in the room, and that almost no one was thinking about who was in the room, and that she wanted to be the person who thought about it. I want to leave you with one thing. There is a difference between the people in your life who would call you when something is wrong and the people in your life who would get in their car. The calling is the small kind of love. The calling is real and it counts. The getting in the car is a different thing. The getting in the car is the love that does not let you receive the worst news of your life by yourself. The getting in the car is the love that drives through the night without asking whether the asking is convenient or whether the drive is something the driver was planning on doing. The getting in the car is the love that calls ahead to a nurse and a father-in-law in another state to coordinate the timing of a doorway moment, because the love has decided in advance that doorway moments are the moments that matter and that nobody should have to be in them alone. Most of us have a few people in our lives who would make the call. Most of us have fewer who would get in the car. The ones who would get in the car are the people you keep. They are the people you call back when they need something. They are the people you drive for when their doorway moment comes. They are the people whose names go on every emergency contact form you ever fill out, in pencil at first and then in pen. There is one specific thing I am asking you to do this week. I am asking you to write down, on a piece of paper, the names of the people in your life who would get in the car. The list is going to be short. The list is going to be shorter than you expect. The shortness is the information. The information is who you have been building your life around without telling anybody, including yourself. Then I am asking you to text one of those people. The text does not have to say much. The text can say, "Hey, I was just thinking about you. I am glad you are in my life. You do not have to explain. You do not have to be in a doorway. You can be sitting in your kitchen on a Tuesday, drinking a cup of coffee that has gone cold, and you can send the text. And the person on the other end of the text is going to know what you mean, because the people who would get in the car are the people who recognize the small reachings of the people they would get in the car for. The text is the practice. The practice is the friendship. The friendship is the thing that is going to be there when the call comes at 3 in the morning. And the friendship is going to be there because you have been building it on Tuesdays, in your kitchen, with cold coffee, by sending small, unexplained texts to the people who would drive through the night for you. Joelle is at her apartment in Madison. It is 2 in the afternoon on a Wednesday. I just texted her. The text said, "Thinking of you." She wrote back in 90 seconds. She wrote, "Same, always." That is the entire exchange. The exchange is the friendship. The friendship is what I owe my life to. The owing is not a burden. The owing is the privilege. I am writing my list. I have 4 names on it so far. I am not done writing yet. I am going to send each of them a text before the end of the day. I am going to keep doing it, every week, for the rest of my life, because 3:11 in the morning is coming for all of us, and the only thing that determines who is in the doorway with us is the practice we have been doing in the years before the doorway shows up. Practice now. The doorway is coming. The doorway always comes. Make sure somebody is in it with you.